You are tuned in to the Monday Night Carlo, sports and entertainment sportscast. And now, without further ado, I give to you the one and only Carlo.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Monday Night Carlo. It's going to be all the signs of a good time tonight because I'm doing something that my regular listeners always on at me about, and that is I do not talk enough wrestling on this show. So that's exactly what I'm going to do tonight. Being a pop culture podcast, we don't always get time to talk wrestling, but tonight I'm going to make time because I'm talking to Mr. Will Coolin, who is very much a big part of Fighting Spirit magazine, a big contributor to that. The podcast itself is brought to you by our new sponsors, iRetroGamer, that you can follow on Twitter at iRetroGame. You can follow the podcast via Twitter at MNC Podcast, Facebook as well, facebook.com/MNC Podcast. And as you guys know, the show is now available via YouTube as well as all the iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio for our American listeners, and many, many more. But as I said, that's interview time, so let's talk to Will right now. Will, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Carlo. I am great. It's good to speak to you. We can talk about what is surely at least the second most eagerly anticipated show of WrestleMania weekend.
So I want to talk to you, obviously, about WrestleMania. We'll get to that. I think we're going to go through the matches as well. What's down for WrestleMania? But tell us a bit about you and your work, Will, first and foremost.
So I'm Fighting Spirit magazine's token UFC fan. So I do the monthly recaps of UFC shows. So in the next issue, you'll have my recap of UFC when Conor McGregor got knocked silly by Nate Diaz and then choked out. And I also do longer form articles about not just UFC. I've done some about boxing, also done some about pro wrestling, usually retro pieces. So I really enjoy working for Fighting Spirit magazine. Brian does a great job editing it. And what I try and do with my work is try and show that I'm a big believer, and it can be quite a bold, controversial thing to say, is that pro wrestling at its best is a fake sport.
Right.
And therefore it should bring in things from real sports or pop culture and have them in a heightened way because it can fix things. One of my favorite articles was actually one I did looking at the similarities between pro wrestling and famous footballers and football stories.
Right.
And just showing how some of these great football stories could be done in pro wrestling. And I think that's something that's been lost in pro wrestling. We don't look at human emotion, real life stories and try and put it in a pro wrestling ring. We just have echoes of pro wrestling stories that were successful 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Definitely. I mean, are you a wrestling fan at heart? Will, how did you first get involved with wrestling itself?
Big wrestling fan, so grew up as a wrestling fan. I had my Stretch Armstrong toy as a kid. Then lost it for a good few years, and then came back into the Attitude Era. I always remember, because it was a really weird thing, we didn't have Sky, and we got Sky the week after Owen Hart died. So my first Raw, the first Raw I watched was a Raw after Owen's Raw, when Vince McMahon was revealed as a greater power.
Yes.
It's one of these things where you look back and you realise just how shocking your tastes were when you were young and naive and foolish. Because that mid-90s, that mid-99 stuff, which, we all recognise now, I think was pretty awful. I mean, the spark of the Attitude Era of Vince Russo's writing in 98 had gone.
Yes.
Didn't have Austin for a lot. WWF's roster was very thin. But back then, I loved it. It was like, I remember staying up one night just waiting to find out about Kane and Undertaker and Big Show's relationship. So I got into it then, loved it. Obviously, then had a great 2001, and just been a fan ever since.
So let's talk about today's product, Will. What do you think makes today's product that much different from the yesteryear product? And what do you think that today's product ultimately makes the majority of the fans quite angry about the product as well?
Well, I think the first thing you have to say, and it is something we can't ignore, is the wrestling in WWE is so much better than it's been for 4/5 of the promotion's history. I mean,
yes,
WWE has traditionally been a big man promotion. It's typically not pushed guys who are good wrestlers in the ring. Today, I mean, if a WWE main event is not 3.5 stars, 4 stars, something's gone horribly wrong. So in terms of in-ring stuff, it's great. Also, and this is a bit broader than the WWE, it's just so easy to get wrestling now. I mean, I'm someone who's just got into New Japan. We know I talked to people like Brian or Alan who writes for Fighting Spirit magazine, and these are people who got into New Japan or other Japanese promotions by trading tapes. Whereas now you literally just have to have a internet subscription, and all this great stuff all over the world is available at your fingertips. And the problem now is actually having enough time to fit all this in. Same with all the retro content that you can get easy access to for the network. The problem with WWE is, one, the product is stale. We are still stuck in the house that Eric Bischoff built. Raw and SmackDown are basically Nitro from 95, 96.
Yes.
The same thing of we'll have matches between big stars that don't mean anything because the big matches are say for pay-per-views. The idea that wrestling is basically a 4-camera sitcom in the sense of wrestling is a live show and everything happens at that live show. I mean, I'm being an advocate for wrestling would be better if they try to mix up the things they do on the show. So if they had more, do you ever watch the big boxing height specials, like what say they do for the Mayweather fights? So what they do for them is they literally follow these guys around. So they show them doing their training, they show them going out for them to eat, interacting with their families. Gives you a far more rounded picture of the fighter.
Yes.
And there's no reason why WWE couldn't do this. In fact, the WWE actually did this before anybody else. They actually did this with the Brock Lesnar Rock match back in SummerSlam 2002. But the emphasis for WWE has always been, we have a live audience, we've got to entertain them, therefore our video packages are always quite short, almost always highlight. So I think that's a problem. And then there is the fact that they don't have the larger-than-life characters. When they do have larger-than-life characters, they try and stamp them down because they're not the ones they created. And they just keep picking the wrong people. I mean, we'll talk about this as we get through the card, but there are way too many square pegs in round holes, and it does bring the product down, and it makes it more difficult to engage as a fan because you're just looking at this person like, I don't buy you are what they're trying to make you. I mean, one of the things I think wrestling would benefit from, there are two things. One, be a script editor, just to make sure the whole thing makes sense. The other would be some sort of casting director. So when your writing team, your creative comes to you and say, this is our big idea, this is what we want to do. Yeah. So with this guy, you could have somebody sit there and say, yeah, but he's not believable. He's not that. I mean, it's like, we might as well get to it, Roman Reigns. I'm going to cast Roman Reigns as my anti-authority baby face. And it's like, but why? He's, everything we know about him, everything we know about Vince McMahon and Triple H says that he's exactly the wrong guy to play that character. Yes. And that's not unusual with WWE.
I think as well, the thing is, Will, there's no real segregation between characters because that's kind of like, what is a Dean Ambrose or what is a Roman Reigns, or, there's no real, like you say, there's no real backstory or character to any of these wrestlers. The wrestlers of the past, like you also said, WWE took time and quality to make sure they had a backstory and they had a character, and you knew who The Rock was, who Austin was, and everything like that. I feel like, who is Dean Ambrose? Who is Bray Wyatt?
Well, I remember, I used to, back when it's on the stands, I used to read Power Slam, and I remember Power Slam making the point. I think it's about when JBL had his run-in in Germany when he did the Nazi salute and got into trouble. They were like, pro wrestlers aren't actors. They're not real either. They're kind of like a stand-up comedian. So like a stand-up comedian isn't allowed to break their gimmick,
Yeah.
even though we all know it's fake.
Yep.
So like Al Murray is not actually a pub landlord. He's a history graduate from Cambridge. And the key thing is with what makes a good stand-up comedian is they spent years honing their act on a small circuit before they get to the big leagues. And they have a character that they have developed. Now, sure, they'll come and there'll be editors and there'll be directors and there'll be producers who improve their act when they get to the big stage. But they have spent so much time making this make sense in their heads.
Yeah.
If you listen, Foley did an interview last week and he said, the problem with scripted interviews is what you tell the guy is, don't worry about your interviews. If you ever get to the main event, we'll give you something to read.
Yes.
And so you're basically telling that trainee guy, don't worry about improving your interviews. Don't worry about building your own character. We'll give you one when it comes to it.
Yeah.
And that means it's all the same because it's the same people coming up with the ideas. And the guys have no ownership. It doesn't feel real because they've not came up with it themselves. Look, the most compelling character on WWE television is Brock Lesnar. Why is it Brock Lesnar? Because that is his character. I mean, I remember I did a radio show about Brock Lesnar, and one of the things that I pointed out with the other guys, it was Alan Farrell's show, was if you go back to his NCAA matches, he was actually doing a Brock Shuffle then.
Yes.
That isn't some goofy thing WWE told him to do. That is something that comes naturally to him. And the whole thing with Brock Lesnar is that there's a reality to him that extends through not just his promos into his matches.
Yes.
So the thing with Brock Lesnar, you like him because he's a big guy who beats people up, or you dislike him because he's a bully, and his match style reflects that. Other characters, their character stops at when the bell tolls.
I feel like with especially Dean Ambrose, I feel like the guy could be way more over than the WWE seem to allow him to be if they just let him cut loose with his own promos, because I feel like he's had words put in his mouth. And I also feel like as far as Dean Ambrose goes, he should be a loose cannon, more of a Brian Pillman type of character than what he's shown us, you know?
I think the thing with Dean, I think you're right. I think the thing with Dean Ambrose is I think he's as over as they want him to be over. I think they look at him and think we've probably got him to the right level.
Yes.
Because since he's broken from the Shield, he's been this wacky guy.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think they have too much comedy. I don't dislike comedy in pro wrestling, but they have way too much of it, and they let it get way too close to main events. So a good example, New Day. Nothing against New Day. Perfectly good acts. Perfectly enjoyable to watch, although sometimes their segments are a bit long.
Yes.
But every single time they've put them in the main event, it's been death. Why? Because people don't care about them or their matches in that way. They're perfectly happy to have them as a 10-minute bit of filler, which they'd laugh at. But you try and get people to emotionally invest in their matches, all people remember is these are goofballs who talk about unicorns. And the WWE do way too much of it. So Dean Ambrose is meant to be a main eventer.
Yes.
And yet, you remember last year when he just broken away. No, the Shield had just broken up. They had him eating popcorn and watching horror movies to prepare to fight Kane. It's just like, this doesn't make any sense. This isn't making me care about this character.
That's right. And
the problem,
also the promo he cut with Triple H before Roadblock, I actually found that quite cringeworthy because I felt like, are you trying to be playful? Aren't you supposed to be kind of a loose cannon? Like I said, you're not supposed to be playful.
One of the other problems they have, and actually this is one of the things I think is WWE's probably their biggest problem, because it's the thing I think that really magnifies or encourages a lot of their bad traits, is they have too few wrestlers. And this is what I mean. I am maybe the last person still fighting on this hill that the network was a huge mistake, and then they should try and put at least some of the shows back on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Because they're just as profitable now as they were before the network,
right.
In terms of the actual money. I mean, to be fair, but that's because of TV rights. But they're not losing any money now. But that's because they've cut money back, so they've cut wrestlers, they've not hired new wrestlers. And the problem they have is that their roster is way too small. And what that means is that to pad out 5 hours of television, they have to have long matches that don't mean anything, and they have to have these long talking segments, and they have to have wrestlers perform too many times each week.
Yes.
So you look at someone like Roman Reigns. Look, we all know Roman Reigns. If you want to push him as a babyface, the model is Goldberg. He literally uses the same move as Goldberg. He's not a great talker, but there's a bit of charisma to him in the ring, and he can beat people up. So you want him to have short 2-minute promos, short 5-minute matches where he's dominant. Problem is that they need him to talk for long times so they can fill out the first segment. They need him to wrestle for a long time so they can fill out one of the main event segments. And because they don't have enough guys, they can't feed people to him in that way. And there were shows in like January and February where Roman Reigns was literally having a long talking segment and then 2 matches in one show, and then having a long segment in SmackDown and then wrestling on SmackDown. And it's just like, no, someone like Steve Austin would have been overexposed by this. This would have hurt his drawing power. It would certainly have hurt Hulk Hogan's drawing power. Someone like Roman Reigns just can't cope with that overexposure. So I think the amount they ask guys to do now really hurts their character, and it stops them being able to take the time to think, okay, Dean Ambrose is a loose cannon, so he shouldn't just be walking up to Triple H and having a nice 20-minute back and forth discussion. He should be doing something crazy that only lasts 5 minutes.
You're tuned into Monday Night Carlo, the sports pop culture podcast, available on iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher Radio. So why not hit that subscribe button now? Monday Night Carlo, where pop culture fun lives.
And the thing is that I really don't understand is what a lot of wrestling fans want me to ask you, and that was on my Twitter feed about Roman Reigns. Do you think that, I mean, we as wrestling fans, we think we know everything, in essence. We think we know everything that goes on behind the curtain, and we think that the buck stopped with Vince. What do you think, Will? Do you think that Vince literally just wants his way or no way?
I honestly don't know, which is, I'm sure not what people want to hear. I mean, look, we know that Vince chickened out in April last year, that they were meant to put the title on Roman. The whole idea is we've got Brock, he beat The Undertaker, Roman will be the guy to beat the guy who beat The Undertaker.
Yeah. And
they chickened out. So it's not the case he's not unaware of the reaction of the fans. And they then try to de-push him to kind of let the fans cool down and avoid Roman Reigns' backlash. But now they've brought it back. And so to me, it feels like they want Roman to be the guy. We knew that before he debuted, and they'd picked him out as the standout of the old NXT. And they're just trying their best to make this work. The thing I don't get is the last time they tried to get a white meat babyface over whose initial babyface run hadn't worked was The Rock. And all they had to do was turn him heel for a while. Within a year, he was babyface. And that's the only thing they haven't tried, which is the thing I don't get. If you just turned him heel, as late as November, you'd be ready now to launch him as a big babyface. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with Roman Reigns. Look, in the Shield, the fans liked him. The character has just been all wrong.
I feel as though Roman Reigns is not developed whatsoever as a character, because he just looks like he exactly the same as he was in the Shield. Will.
Well, I think that's true. I think that's what there's no. I don't get a sense of agency to his character.
Yeah.
So why is he feuding with the Authority? What is it about the Authority that he dislikes? What is it about him that the Authority dislikes?
Yeah.
Because this is so like The Rock. Whenever they did Rock versus the McMahons, it never really worked. Because, okay, why should I care about this glamorous guy, this glamorous, successful guy feuding with his boss? It has nothing to do with me. Steve Austin, fierce, willing redneck feuding with his boss. Okay, that has something to me. Same thing with Roman Reigns. I don't care if he dislikes his boss.
Yes.
I just don't care. And again, because it doesn't feed into any like super narrative. There is no subtext to Roman Reigns versus the Authority. It's Roman Reigns is their perfect champion. They've said he's their perfect champion. He says something smart ass to the Authority. They take offense. And now they're squabbling. And it's just like, why should I care? Whereas if they turned him heel, then it's like, because he'd be perfect as the entitled heel champion who is everything WWE tries to shove down a fan's face. I mean, you imagine if you had this main event be Roman Reigns versus AJ Styles.
Yes.
It'd be perfect. You know, the amount of anticipation for this event would be incredible.
And all they have to do with Roman Reigns as well, all they literally have to do is have him totally turn on the fans. So you push me to this and all that kind of stuff. I think that would work so well for his character as well.
Yeah. And the thing as well is you have the stable, because you could have brought up Samoa Joe and you could have turned the Usos heel. You have the evil Samoan faction to go with the Authority.
So another thing that I wanted to ask you about, Will, is I read your column in the FSM about NXT and why Vince feels that it's just not working. What are your opinions about NXT, Will?
So there's a number of things. So one, no, obviously the takeover shows are great.
Yes.
Like everybody, I watch the weekly shows when I can, but they're not essential, but they logically build up to the specials, which is great. It's what they're there for. The thing is that NXT has a lot of inherent advantages over WWE. It doesn't have to worry about reaching out to the casual audience because it's just a hardcore only product. It's producing far less time and actually has a fairly sizable roster. So one of the great things about NXT is it doesn't have the people wrestling every week. Because it has enough of a roster to just rotate people in and out for over, I'd say, a 2-3 month period.
Yeah.
If logical booking is imposed on it because they tape in advance,
yes,
you can't book week to week if you're taping in 2-month blocks. It's physically impossible. So there's all these inherent advantages about NXT, which makes it good. The problem I think you've got with Vince is I just think he doesn't engage with it as a way of developing stars.
Yes.
For him, it's an investment in Triple H, in my opinion. I think it's just, we want this guy to have this great status so we can keep the company in the McMahon family without there being a massive stink from shareholders and institutional actors when the time comes for Vince to go. But you look at the people Triple H is pushing to get this buzz around him, they're just not the type of people Vince is interested in. And so we see, and they're not presented the way. So you get someone like Charlotte Flair. I actually think that she probably is the type of woman that Vince is really interested in. Because one of the things that people forget about Vince is he's always been interested in this idea of having a white meat, athletic, credible female athlete to be the women's champion. But the thing with Charlotte Flair is that she's been presented a certain way in NXT, and they brought these women up to the main roster, and they just clearly were not interested in mimicking the stuff they'd done in NXT. I mean, in addition to Oscar did for FSM, I actually wrote something back in the summer for Wrestling Observer about how they should have done the bringing up of the women to the WWE. Mm-hmm. And the obvious thing would be to actually replicate an awful lot of the stuff they did in NXT and just literally redo it. So, like, I mean, last couple of weeks ago, we had Charlotte and Natalia in their first big match on the main roster. And I've been saying for like 6 months, why haven't they done Charlotte and Natalia? It was such a great match back in NXT to get these women over. Vince wasn't interested. What Vince needs to do, as always, is make people in their own image. So you look at the Divas division now. One of the reasons why they get a bit more steam now is that Charlotte is now a WWE character. She's completely different to what she was in NXT. She's doing all the Flair mannerisms. She's an out-and-out heel. She's got Rick as manager. Vince can stand back and look at that and say, yeah, I created that. The NXT act wasn't working. Now it's working. And this is going to be a problem moving forward because, you've got Sasha. So what are they going to do with her when she gets a championship? You've got people like Finn, Samoa Joe. It's that thing of Vince, A, doesn't care. He just wants to get Triple H over as an executive. And B, when these guys come up, it's the same issue with Ohio Wrestling. They have to be remade in his own image.
So let's talk a little bit about WrestleMania itself. Obviously, we're not going to go through every single match because there's a lot of filler and no thriller, as they say, with WrestleMania. But just before we talk about the matches themselves, Will, a lot of people say that this is kind of the weakest card for a Mania that we've seen in a long time. What would your response to that be?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's such a shame because you actually look at that. You actually look at the talent they have. They could do a better Mania quite relatively easily. It's a weak card in the sense of they've got the matches don't feel very inspiring. They haven't been built up well. I mean, you think about most of these matches have had less than a 3-week build because of Roadblock, which is heard of for WrestleMania. They don't really have any big debuts because they put AJ Styles onto the main roster. The other new stars from New Japan are debuting on NXT first, and the build has been abysmal. And I mean, not only has it been short, it's just been really uninspired. They just haven't peaked for WrestleMania at all. And it's probably not fair to talk about ratings because I remember back for WrestleMania 27, which was an excellent build. The ratings didn't reflect how excellent that build was. But this has just been, there's been no flow through. They've not been clicking. By all accounts, the crowd was dead for the show in Philadelphia on Monday. And yeah, so it's definitely a weak card. And one thing that is important to say, there's a lot of people talk about how WrestleMania draws based on the brand.
Yes. And
yeah, that's true for the live audience, I suppose. But you look at the history of pay-per-view. What you had up to WrestleMania 27. So between about WrestleMania 20, so Trump was 23. So WrestleMania 24, 25, 26, and 26, sorry, not 27. So those three, you had WWE pay-per-view going down year on year. And WrestleMania going down year on year as well. So WrestleMania is basically trending with the rest of WWE's pay-per-view business. When they brought The Rock back for those three shows, WrestleMania increased, whilst WWE pay-per-views kept going down. And then after they lost The Rock for WrestleMania, then WrestleMania 30, Daniel Bryan, but those three shows with The Rock booked a trend, and it was because of The Rock. So big stars do matter. Good builders matter for WrestleMania. If this WrestleMania was on pay-per-view, they would do it remarkably badly because the whole product just incredibly cold at the moment.
I think the thing is as well that you cannot underestimate the fact that the casual fans will come to this and they will sell out that arena because at the end of the day, WrestleMania as a brand, whether you've been watching it, whether you haven't been watching it for a while, I just think that people will come the world over to see it regardless, Will.
Well, I think in terms of the live audience as well, I mean, look, if I had the money, I would go, even though I don't think the card's very good.
Yes, definitely.
But it won't be because of WrestleMania. I mean, I would go to WrestleMania because if I'm there, I might as well. It would be because on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I could have the most amazing holiday just watching all this great wrestling that's being shown on the independent circuit. Go to the Evolve shows. I could go to Ring of Honor shows. I could go to NXT shows, Dragon Gate USA shows. You know, why wouldn't you want to go? So
okay, so let's look at the 7-man ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship, which looks very interesting. As Kevin Owens is champion, obviously, versus Sami Zayn, Dolph Ziggler, Zack Ryder, Sin Cara, The Miz, and Stardust.
This is the match. Of all the matches on WrestleMania, even ones I really violently disagree with, this is one I don't get.
Yes.
You want to have... The whole thing has been is this ladder match is to have a great match. Okay? Yeah. Fair enough. I get that. But you have Carlisto, your US champion, a flyer. And he's in a nothing match with Ryback. So why not have Carlisto defend his championship in the ladder match? And therefore you can do Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn at WrestleMania.
Yes.
Which would be a great match and the fans would love it.
It would be amazing.
And that match would get both guys over far more because they could focus on their personalities, this great feud, never-ending feud. So the fact that they've thrown them both into this ladder match, which has such a motley crew, of contestants as well. I mean, Zack Ryder, really, in 2016, Zack Ryder's getting a title shot. Why are we meant to care about the Intercontinental Championship if Zack Ryder is good enough to fight for it? Hell, after how they treated Dolph Ziggler last week, are we really meant to care about Dolph Ziggler getting a championship shot? So for me, I find it a bizarre decision. It's not the way I would have gone. I mean, to me, I hope they don't give it to Sami Zayn. I think Sami Zayn big title win needs to happen in a more meaningful match. So, I mean, I hope they let Kevin Owens retain.
Yes, definitely.
Kevin Owens is one of these characters. He's one of these characters where he has been holding his character away from WWE for so long.
Yeah.
And his character is great, and they really don't use him enough. So I really hope they give him his big win, and he can go forward and have a great feud with Sami Zayn.
Also, just to clarify on that, I completely agree. But I would have used. I mean, it's not on the list here, but I'm guessing it's going to be Y2J once again versus AJ Styles. But I'd have loved to have seen a ladder match with Kevin Owens versus AJ Styles for the belt. What about you, Will?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Owens, AJ Styles would have been amazing. They've done it twice, so they've done it SmackDown and Raw. Which, and again, this is one of the things. AJ Styles, Kevin Owens. If you build to it, that's a money match. But we've now seen it twice on Throwaway, so It's not going to be special when we get to it. But I mean, AJ. I mean, I suppose we can transition and talk about AJ Styles, Chris Jericho. I mean, I really am not feeling Jericho, AJ Styles. I mean, first of all, it just feels so predictable. It's like, oh, they've got a new guy who's a good wrestler. Oh, they'll put him in with Chris Jericho. It's just like. I mean, I think I literally predicted that and wrote that prediction down before Styles debuted. The problem as well is they've just done too much for this feud in too short a space of time.
Yeah.
They've already had 3 matches. They've teamed, they've turned, and the turn, I've got to say, I mean, I know some people are praising Jericho's performance. I thought the performance was useless. It was that horrible thing of switch goes off in wrestler's head. They are now evil. So literally, they've been getting on fine. They started tagging. They've got their new T-shirts. They're tagged for 2 matches. They lose a match. And then Jericho goes crazy and his whole demeanor changes. And it's just like, normal people don't act like that. That isn't realistic. I can't suspend disbelief for this guy having a psychotic breakdown for a tag team losing that's only existed for 2 weeks. It doesn't make any sense. And now... I just want to see AJ Styles wrestle somebody else than Chris Jericho. No, I've seen it 3 times. It's been good. I'm happy Chris Jericho can have those matches at his age, but I'd rather see I'd rather see AJ Styles go up against someone like Bubba Ray, his old Bully Ray character. If everybody else is busy, I just want to see something different for AJ. And yeah, you're right. Kevin Owens would have been great. Sami Zayn would have been great. Dean Ambrose would have been great. Brock Lesnar would have been great. There's so many great people in this roster that AJ Styles could have wrestled. I'd rather not just keep going back to this Chris Jericho thing over and over again.
I actually fear for AJ Styles because I'm a big AJ fan. I loved AJ in TNA. I thought it was amazing. I as much as I love seeing AJ come to the WWE, I've got that feeling in the back of my head, Will, that A, that's too little too late, and B, I don't think they're going to make him a world champion, Will.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I don't think they will either. But I mean, that's fine. You don't have to be a world champion to have a good run. I mean, to me, I always thought the natural of AJ in WWE would have been the secondary champion, but like a real one. So, but like his best into TNA was when he was the X Division champion. So to me, my thing would be if you were booking logically, you would be booking to WrestleMania for him to win one of the secondary championships, and it could have easily been him beating Kevin Owens.
So good.
And then you have AJ just going out and having these great matches. Very much what Cena was doing last year, US title challenge, what the plan was for Daniel Bryan, because AJ could just have a good match with anybody.
Definitely.
And it's like what comes up after this? So I mean, I assume AJ is going to win. where does AJ go next? I mean, he's not, unless they turn Roman heel, there's going to be a babyface world champion. So he's going to have this long 50-50 feud with Jericho, and he's then going to transition into challenger of the Intercontinental title. I just feel like he had such momentum coming in with the Royal Rumble performance.
Yeah.
And the reaction he got. And now he just feels like another guy. But again, they always do this. Look at how great Kevin Owens looked when he debuted. And look at where he was within 6 months. They're not very good at introducing new characters because they don't book backwards. They don't say, we debut this guy, we want him to be here in 6 months' time. They just give them a great debut because they've had time to think about that and they've planned this in advance, and then you just wing it until they lose interest.
I feel as though, like, as far as Vince McMahon himself goes, I feel almost like Vince has his picks. Like, he has his hands full with. He obviously loves Randy Orton. He obviously loves Seth Rollins. And nothing's going to come in between his picks and these other guys, because to me, they've got an amazing roster. And like you say, they could use and utilize the talent they have here rather than seeing them as kind of B card. They could utilize the talent they have. So then, surely, to me, when Randy Orton does come back, when Seth Rollins does come back, surely that makes it even better, Will.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I mean, you're absolutely right. Vince is his favorite, and everything about AJ probably means that AJ isn't Vince's favorite.
Yeah.
You know, he's small, he's a high flyer, he's Southern. Don't forget that, you know, despite the fact that he's actually from North Carolina, Vince really does not like Southerners, and you know, AJ has a very thick Southern.
Very true.
He isn't the best interviewer there's ever been, to put it slightly. So AJ's always going to be a difficult fit for WWE, but. Again, look, this was a promotion that made Ricky Steamboat a fairly big star. You know, and that is the mold. You know, you just have him as this nice babyface champion who's just a fighting champion. No, like Bret Hart back in the 90s. That's what AJ Styles could easily be. He doesn't have to win the world title. That isn't the only measure of success. He could have great matches at that Intercontinental title level, but you can't. This is the thing. You can't do stuff like that if you have your Intercontinental champion defending against jobbers.
And surely wrestlers like Owens, like AJ, these are the wrestlers you want to make your company and your Intercontinental belt to be the Intercontinental belt once again. Because when I was a kid growing up, I've been a wrestling fan since 1990. The first thing I ever saw as a kid when I was flicking around the channels was the Warrior versus Hogan at WrestleMania 6. And ever since then, I've been a fan. And to me, the Intercontinental belt was huge, Will, back in the day, you know?
Yeah, I mean, certainly that era, it was huge. I mean, when I got back into wrestling back in 1999, it was on its way down. But then it picked up in 2000, 2001, because you had Angle, you had Jericho, you had Benoit, you had Guerrero, Rob Van Dam. You had all these great guys wrestling for it. And, you know, I mean, I've personally been an advocate for weight classes in pro wrestling, so you could have multiple championships and stuff like that.
Yep.
You know, I don't think there's a need to just have one world champion in today's world. I think, you know, that you're never going to have somebody appeal to the entire audience, but they seem to be unable to protect their championships beyond every now and again they'll give a main event or a secondary championship, and that title will mean a lot whilst that champion has it. So look at the US title. The US title from WrestleMania through to October was a really important championship last year because Cena and briefly Rollins held a championship.
Yes.
Minute Del Rio got that belt. It's been curtains for it. And it's now, I don't think that championship has ever meant less.
I mean, the thing with Alberto Del Rio is he's another frustrating character to me, because I used to love Alberto Del Rio when he was with Ricardo Rodriguez, because it was the character of him with this huge ring announcement, and he was, you know, he brought the glamour with the $100,000 cars, and it was something different, something exciting, and people hated him because he was like flamboyant in your face, and now he's just a nothing. And I feel like Vince just doesn't know what to do with these guys, because let's face it, the League of Nations and the Social Outcasts are just two groups full of people that they just have no clue how to handle.
So here's a crazy thing, right? They want a Hispanic babyface, and they should. They absolutely should. You know anything about American combat sports, you know that they should be looking for Hispanic babyface. So Del Rio left because a member of WWE staff racially insulted him, and Del Rio slapped him. So and this guy eventually gets fired, and they pay him off, and it's all in agreement. And so you bring in Del Rio back, and you want a big Hispanic babyface. Now, to me, this is the time where you get to make your big Hispanic babyface. You bring him back. You don't worry about the US title. You bring him back. You get him to go after Seth Rollins. You get him to use the slap as one of his high spots in his matches.
Yep.
You directly reference the fact that he quit because of somebody in WWE being racist. And you build to him having a match with Triple H, because that's real. You have all and you go remember the Mexican audience and quickly and much of the Spanish audience in America knows this story because as Alberto El Patron, he was talking about it all the time.
Yeah.
Instead, they put him with Zeb Coulter and have him do this Mexico America, wherever it was. They're thinking this is at the same time where Univision was selling the American-Mexico football match on the back of this was Mexico's chance to shut Donald Trump up. It's just like, what is wrong with you?
Yes.
Why can you not take something that is real and put it on your TV show? This is the equivalent of having Stone Cold Steve Austin, come out in 1998 and talk about how much he loves Eric Bischoff. I literally don't get it. And I mean, you're right. That League of Nations. I mean, you look at Rusev, right? So they have Brock Lesnar, and they need to work out ways to have him in big matches. For me, Rusev, evil Russian, put him on a massive win streak, book a big stadium in Minnesota, do Lesnar, Rusev, easy.
And the fact that I absolutely loved Rusev when he was with Lana as the big heel, getting the big wins, and then once again. Just like we were saying, Will, they really didn't know what to do with him once again.
Well, and it's the other thing of it's a curse of the Cena feud, because the problem with Cena is they won't let him lose in multiple matches in succession, which is fair enough. He's their big star, but they won't let him just do one-off matches. So with Rusev, it should have been disputed win for Rusev. Cena wins at WrestleMania. But then Rusev should have just not faced Cena again. He should have reestablished himself. He should have gone back on a winning streak. Maybe to do the rematch with Cena at SummerSlam. Maybe to do something else.
Yeah.
Instead, they kept having them wrestle each other. So Rusev ended up losing like 3 more matches before that feud was finally over. By which time he was buried so far under. Mm-hmm. Same thing happened with Bray Wyatt. Same thing happened with Kevin Owens. They just can't leave it alone. They have to have these feuds involving Cena going for far too many pay-per-views. So eventually, even if Cena lets the guy win the first one, they've just lost too many matches to be taken seriously.
25, 30, 30, 37, 50, 60, 60, 70, 70, 80, 90. I'm 100% sure that if you watch Monday Night Carlo, you're going to be in for a treat. You're going to learn a lot of stuff. And thank you, and thank everyone. This is a ringleader.
You mentioned Bray Wyatt there, and that's another wrestler to me that really, really frustrates me, because to me, they were on to a winner with Bray Wyatt. This, you have no mistake about it. I went to a few live shows when the Wyatts were at their peak, and they were at their peak. I mean, even before the show started, you were getting Wyatt chants, you were getting the cell phones coming out, and it just, to me, it's just a huge waste of talent there. I mean, the guy's amazing on the microphone. The guy can work a match, and he's got the moves. It's just, to me, Will, I just don't know where they're trying to take Bray Wyatt. And let's make no bones about it. Nobody cares about Bray Wyatt anymore.
And I agree. I mean, his whole debut was excellent. The Wyatt, that original Wyatt clan was really enjoyable to watch. I mean, do you remember when they finally did Shield versus Wyatt
in the ring? That was amazing.
In that the builds,
yes,
but the problem, there's a couple of problems with the Wyatts. first of all, they haven't given him anything to do. So it's like, what is Bray Wyatt's mission? What is he up to? And so it makes him very tedious. Secondly, when he has nothing to do, they keep him on TV. I think Bray Wyatt, I think it's a natural thing of his character to a certain extent. He is probably somebody that would benefit from being cycled in and out. So, give him a big feud, then have him go away for a few weeks to bring him back when you have another big feud for him. Don't just keep him on TV all the time. And this is the thing. I think they should do this a lot more. So it's like Big Show and Kane. You can still have them on the house shows, drawing your money that way. You can still put them in dark matches. But if you haven't got anything useful for them, don't just put them with jobbers on TV, because you're then defining them down in the eyes of the fans. Then they really messed up when they split the Whites up and then brought them back together with Braun Strowman. No. That, I think, really hurt the Wyatts. Because I think the thing with Bray is, he's not a bad wrestler. He's not the best wrestler either. And the whole cult leader image does kind of play into the fact that he should have followers. The followers can help the matches be a bit better. But now he's a character that really they need to let him just go away for a while and come back. Because at the moment, there's talk of him potentially being in main events with Roman, with Brock. They're just gonna die if they do that. He just needs to go away for a while. And if he goes away for 6 months, by the time he comes back, he'll be really popular again.
I feel exactly the same, Will. I feel like that's kind of the John Cena effect. They're kind of, in essence, the fans are getting bored to death of him. And when he does come back, he's going to get an amazing pop.
And providing they have something for him to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the key thing, is that they have a good character with him, but you actually look at what he's done in WWE. He's not done anything. He's just kind of drifted from one random feud to another.
Yeah.
He just happens to randomly attack baby faces for no reason and for no justification. So he's definitely somebody. I think this is a key for him. Again, we'll talk about it when we come to people like Roman. It's like, it's not. So we're talking about AJ Styles, somebody who we both feel WWE is not going to make the most out of because they don't value him as a star. But they clearly do value Bray Wyatt as a star, and yet they're still messing him up because they're just being incompetent. There's no conspiracy with Bray Wyatt. They do think highly of him. They do want him to be a big star. They're just really bad at writing TV shows.
It's just. I get to the point sometimes when I'm watching it with my friends, Will, that I actually get kind of pit of the stomach frustrated because I don't like to berate the product. I don't like to moan about the product on my podcast. If anything, I'm that much of a fan that all I ultimately want is for it to be the best it can be, Will.
Yeah, and I think as well, I mean, look, I'm not saying it's easy. There's a lot of politics involved. There's a lot of things to juggle around when you're booking. But, I mean, I look at what you could have had this WrestleMania with a bit of forethought. And again, we'll talk about it when we get to the main events. But there is so many. Okay, so say Bray Wyatt, right? You could have done the Wyatts versus the Balor Club. You could have had Harper. You could have had Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson ready to go with Finn, and you could have had those two teams go at it, which I think would have been a big match.
Yes, yeah.
There's things they could do. You could have had Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn ready. You could have had AJ Styles challenging for the world title, Intercontinental Championship ready. You could have been more aggressive about getting a big star in, so like someone like Dave Bautista. The one for me, if I was WWE, and I would be begging to come back, is CM Punk, because I think CM Punk, if he came back, and they'd have to give him a lot of money, they'd have to put him on a reduced schedule. If they could get Punk back, I think they could draw a shed load of money with Punk on top. And because the fans, that's the type of person the fans want on top. I mean, CM Punk versus a heel Roman Reigns, I honestly think it's probably the biggest match they could do, bar none. I don't even think stuff like Rock versus Brock would be as big as that match. Because I think fans would be just so into the idea of CM Punk coming back to defeat this bland corporate champion.
And let's just talk about CM Punk for a moment, Will, because I know that you're into your MMA and stuff. So I just want to know, like, I'm not going to hide the fact that I do not know anything about UFC or MMA. What I do know is that from the reports I've heard, CM Punk isn't doing that well. Is that true? Or
Yeah, one of the reasons why I think WWE should be trying to get CM Punk back before he fights is the fight is going to go bad. So
yeah,
he signed late 2014. It's now 2016. Still not fought.
exactly.
He's been going around doing media for the UFC. They finally got to the point where they'd picked his opponent and actually done a confrontation inside the octagon, which, as people pointed out, you visibly saw one of the UFC staff members trying to show CM Punk how you pose as a fighter in a confrontation, because CM Punk didn't know. And a week later, CM Punk decided to go and have back surgery rather than face this guy. So his fight's been delayed due to injury for the third time. All the stuff people are hearing from camp is that he's not very good, which is not shocking because he's old. He has no athletic background. He's beaten up from pro wrestling. He isn't, not only does he have no like fighting background in the sense of he it's not like Brock Lesnar, who had been an elite wrestler in his college days. Again, like Brock Lesnar, CM Punk just isn't a very good athlete. I mean, that's the whole thing. Remember, the WWE DVD they put out was like they had somebody saying the first day of training was like he had lead in his pants.
Yeah.
The whole thing CM Punk is he worked very hard to become a good in-the-ring pro wrestler. But what carried him was the fact that he had just had these tremendous promos and this tremendous character.
Yes. I also heard he had a lot of... I heard that he had like 14 test fights or something and he only won one.
But the thing is, like, if he loses, he loses. I mean, the big problems is, one, his promos flat out suck.
Yeah.
Because he knows he's not a good fighter. So, and Todd Martin of Pro Wrestling Torch, and sometimes Vice Spear magazine, he actually said this to me in an article I did for FSM a couple of years ago when he said, look, the problem with CM Punk is he will not be CM Punk in the octagon because he's not delusional. He knows he's going to struggle in these fights. So whereas in pro wrestling, from a very very early on in his career, he was convinced that he was the best pro wrestler in the world.
Yeah.
And would go out and deliver these great promos, great arrogant promos. He just can't do that. And that's exactly what's happened. He delivers these incredibly anodyne promos because he knows he's going to get his fucking ass kicked. He's a 40-year-old actor, for crying out loud, compared to these guys.
Definitely.
The other problem, I think it's a bigger problem, is he is basically a hypocrite. He is everything that he complained about The Rock and The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar dealing the WrestleMania headliner spots, except the fact that they were great pro wrestlers who had previously done a full-time schedule. And CM Punk's none of that when it comes to UFC.
Yes.
And one of the things I worry about is it's not so much that he will get destroyed inside the octagon and that hurt his pro wrestling drawing power. So I don't think anybody's ever thought CM Punk as a particularly of a tough guy. It's that when pro wrestling fans realize that despite having no talent for this whatsoever, he has backdoored his way into this sweet, paying, high-profile fight on a UFC show. They're going to take one look at him and realize he's a hypocrite, realize that he was a whiner, that all this stuff about not being fair on regular working guys was just stuff he was saying because he felt slighted. It wasn't really something that he believed in. Yep. And undermine his ability to be the anti-authority babyface. So I think him in the UFC, it's already a fiasco. It's now 18 months since he signed and we're still no closer to a fight. But if he gets into that ring, it's going to be even worse. And the thing is, he could hurt himself.
I think that CM Punk is kind of the victim of his own ego, Will, to some extent as well.
I don't think he's victim of his own ego. I think the problem is that there was a fundamental misunderstanding between him and WWE, which is a sense of he felt that he was a huge star. And he was, he was a huge star. And within WWE, he felt that he had been sabotaged, which he had been.
Yeah.
He talked about it on the podcast, and I haven't had anybody deny this. He was arranging Comic-Con bookings independently, and then the front office was going around cancelling them and then giving these Comic-Cons John Cena instead. The thing with CM Punk is that he was a big star, but WWE did not want to treat him as a big star. They don't want to give him any of the perks you're meant to get when you're a top star. And the one that always strikes to me is this whole story of him versus Ryback. So the whole thing is, he's done a match with Brock. He's put Brock over, which he's not happy about, but he's done it. And now it's coming to his winter program, and it's like, we want you to do a feud with Ryback. CM Punk goes, I don't want to wrestle Ryback. He's clumsy. He hurt me last time I wrestled. The matches will be awful. I don't want to do it. Now, if you're a top star in pro wrestling, you're meant to be able to pick who you wrestle with. That's one of the perks of being a top star.
Yeah.
Steve Austin didn't want to work with Jeff Jarrett, even though Jeff Jarrett was a pet project of the head writer. Didn't work with Jeff Jarrett. Simple as that. WWE, minute CM Punk said, don't want to work with Ryback, should have just went, fine. Who do you want to work with? How about Antonio Cesaro? Do you want to have some great matches with Antonio Cesaro for the autumn? And I think that was what ground CM Punk down and made him quit, is that he just wasn't treated as what he thought he was, which was this huge star. Yeah. And to me, part of talent relations is managing the egos of the talent. It is saying, CM Punk, you're wonderful. CM Punk, you're great. We'll do this for you. We'll do that for you. Because at the end of the day, making sure CM Punk is happy and is wrestling for you is more important than trying to get Ryback over for the 20th time.
Definitely. So let's move on to another match from the glorious card of WrestleMania. And let's pick the Divas Championship match. First things first, though, I've got to say that I really find that the Divas Championship is highly outdated, and the term diva is outdated as well. I'd love to see a comeback for the Women's Championship.
It's not outdated. It never made any sense when they first did it. It's just wrong.
It is just wrong. We won't go there because it does aggravate me. But yeah, I'd love to see a comeback for the Women's Championship, just because I also think that, as you said, Will, the level of wrestling with the women in NXT is amazing. Some of the matches are brilliant. We haven't yet really seen that in the WWE. Do you think that this match will be what it should be? Because on paper, it really should be something good,
You know what? I kind of disagree. I think on paper, this actually is a match to be very worried about. Whenever they've tried to do multiple women matches in NXT, they've never gone quite to plan. Because one of the problems is that, and I mean this in a nice way, because wrestling is smoke and mirrors. So if you can present a good match, whatever methods you take are good. Women, because they are very young and they're very, very inexperienced by pro wrestling standards, they do rely on meticulous preparation. Far more difficult to do that with a triple threat. It's also far more difficult to do that at WrestleMania, because you always may get your time cut if something else overruns.
Very true.
And so I really worry that they're going to struggle to have a good three-way match. I mean, we'll see how it is. I mean, the crowd is probably going to be heavily into Sasha. There'll probably be the Irish and British fans pro Becky. So I think it'll have a good atmosphere. Will it be a good match? I don't know. I mean, I could easily see it going either way. An interesting thing would be how much time it's going to get. So I don't know if you heard this story about how WWE's told Sky Italia that this is going to be a longer WrestleMania than usual. It might be closing on 5 hours, maybe slightly more than 5 hours.
Really?
So it's going to be a long show. If they get 15 minutes and they can keep things organised, it should be a pretty good match.
Yeah.
But I think the thing it will lack is that emotional intensity, because there's no feud to this match. And that's always a problem when you have three-way matches. It makes it far harder for there to be this emotional engagement. This should be about Sasha going for the match, and it should be about the whole crowd gunning for Sasha to beat Charlotte, who has been this obnoxious heel. And three-way has diluted that to a certain extent, which is a shame. But hopefully it's a good match. Here's the thing, and this is true for an awful lot of these matches. There's no way. I'd be very surprised if this is as good as the match that'll take place on Friday, the NXT women's match between Bayley and Asuka. That will be, I'd imagine, many leaps and bounds above this. which is really depressing when you think that WrestleMania is meant to be the big show, not take over Dallas.
Surely, as a wrestling show, as an owner of both WWE and NXT, surely there should be some NXT matches in WrestleMania as well. Why can't we see an NXT championship match at WrestleMania?
Yeah, I suppose their argument would be is your NXT champion and NXT is the main eventer, and then you define them down and you put them on the main card, because then it'd be they go from being the main eventer of their own show to being the open. I mean, to me, if I was them, I'd be trying to explore turning SmackDown into NXT. SmackDown's just such a waste of a show at the moment.
Yeah, I
don't see why you couldn't make SmackDown the NXT show. I mean, I think there's a bigger. I mean, it's one of the things. There's a bigger issue in the fact that WWE are crying out for new acts. They have new acts in NXT that are ready for the main roster. And you're not teaching Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, Austin Aries. You're not teaching these guys anything. These guys should be in the main event, and they should have been in the main roster for a long time.
I feel that if there's one thing that NXT shows the WWE is that it kind of shows it up at its own game, just because it shows you that as a shorter format and simplified, because let's face it, NXT is simplified and fans prefer it for being like that because it's easy to follow. I think the thing that WWE tries to be is clever because Vince is running the show, and I feel like NXT is more over with the fans because it's easy to follow. The fans know what's going on week in, week out, and it's short format. I don't think we need a 3-hour Raw anymore. And the pay-per-view side of it, there's way too many. They should cut the pay-per-views back to being 6 a year and not 12. Will, what do you overall think?
Okay, so I agree with some of that. So I think the thing, obviously, it'd be great. I mean, I think they could get away with 4 hours a week. I don't think that's too much. They have to just be a bit more careful with how they book.
Yeah.
The problem, obviously, is that they like money, and because the 5 hours of TV gives them more money than just doing 4 or 3 hours.
Very true.
But in terms of pay-per-views, I mean, my thing has always been I think monthly specials is fine. I think it's a nice rhythm. The problem is when you're trying to do monthly specials with the same champion headlining, with all wrestlers having big matches on these shows. To me, so you look at UFC show. UFC show has 5 matches on it. That's what the pay-per-view has. And you got to remember UFC, unlike pro wrestling, a match can only be 25 minutes in terms of the main event, and the non-main event matches can only be 50 minutes usually. And they could end at any minute. And yet they still only book 5 matches. So to me, what you'd ideally have for WWE is you would have your big shows, so one of course, let's say Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and then let's say for the hell of it, Starrcade. And they're 4 hours, they're on pay-per-view, but then you would have your monthly network specials, which maybe are 2 hours, and they have a couple of championship matches, and maybe a big match, and you build from one big show to the next. So you have these 4 big shows, and then you have your specials dotted between them that are building to that big show. And I think that gives you the best of both worlds. But the problem is that to do that, they would have to start booking in advance, and they'd have to literally have meetings where they say, okay, here's the card, here's our SummerSlam card, here's what we're going to do for the next 4 months to get there. And they are far too busy.
Yeah.
To ever do that, because they're just desperately trying to feed this beast that is 5 hours of TV every week. One
question I had for you was one that a lot of people that know me know that I've talked about a lot, and that's that I cannot see when they have the WWE Network why we all know that Extreme Rules, when Extreme Rules is on, it's not really an Extreme Rules pay-per-view. So what I would like to see as a fan, why don't they do a network-only Extreme Rules show that could have the possibility of having blood spill, bring us a R-rated show that doesn't have to worry about sponsorships because it's on the network. You don't have to worry about any other, sponsors getting involved. This is literally network-only, once a year pay-per-view that is hardcore. Does that sound viable, Will? Does that sound like it was something that would work?
Well, I mean, originally, in terms of if you accept WWE's argument that blood was the reason why they couldn't get sponsors, then you can't just have one-off shows where they have blood, because the whole thing was the idea of it's the ongoing corporate relationship. So individual WWE doesn't tend to do very well in selling individual pay-per-views for sponsors. It's more trying to get the brand associated with certain companies. That said, I've never been a believer that the reason why WWE couldn't get good sponsors was because they had blood.
Yeah.
It was always more about the fact that their shows are corny, that they have bad humor, they have bad portrayals of women, of minorities, that they have basic plot holes, that they have non sequiturs, that they come across as cheap television. This is not inherent to pro wrestling. Now, pro wrestling has, in many parts of the world, in places, certain American states, in Japan, been presented as high quality entertainment that appeals to a high income demographic.
Yeah.
The problem is WWE Pro Wrestling. The problem is WWE Pro Wrestling is pitched at a level that naturally does appeal to low-income families in America, and that has turned off sponsors. So I think they could have blood. I personally am not a fan of the Extreme Rules pay-per-view concept. I mean, it's one of these things where people forget when WCW did that with Uncensored, we all laughed at them because it was like, well, that's a bit silly. In terms of blood works best when it's unexpected. Again, gives a pop. In terms of hardcore matches, they work best when there's a natural reason for them in the storyline, and they work better when they're contrasted with a card that is normal. But in terms of could they do different things with network? Yeah, sure. I mean, they could do a WCW reunion night. They could do an ECW reunion night.
Yeah.
They could do different things. And I am surprised they haven't tried to do the nostalgia gimmick show yet, because the whole network, to a certain extent, is built on nostalgia. But they haven't done a lot of things with the network that I thought they would. So we'll see how they'll go.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I also think that there's a lot of things on the network that are just filler. A lot of the comedy content and things, they're fun. I mean, the Edge and Christian show, for example, I really am not a fan because, let's be frank, Edge and Christian originally weren't that funny.
I found some stuff they did. I mean, it's one of the things a New Day is going to have, which is that your strike rate for comedy can be far less when you're heels.
Yeah. Because
bad jokes can just be put down to you being obnoxious. The thing I don't get particularly with Edge, and so to an extent with Christian, is Edge was a main eventer. He was a big star. And it's as if we're meant to forget all he did in his career after 2001. It's like he was only ever the Edge in Edge and Christian. And it's like, well, no, that's not true. He had a different character, which was very successful for him. So yeah, I find how they use him quite bizarre.
So let's move on to the one match that I guess everyone has been talking about, which is the 47-year-old Shane McMahon versus the 50-plus-year-old Undertaker, which, if you put it that way, it doesn't sound too inspiring, but I am a big fan of Shane on the mic and in the ring. I think he's a great guy on the mic. He's one of the best McMahons when it comes to in-ring promos. But what do you feel about this match, Will?
Yeah, I mean, no, look, his return was a fantastic moment. It was, oh my God, what the hell is going on? So yeah, the return was great. The match makes no sense.
Yep.
Why does Shane think he can beat The Undertaker? Why is The Undertaker willing to wrestle Shane on Vince's behalf? What are we as the fans meant to root for? Are we meant to root for the Authority to stay or for The Undertaker's career to end? I mean, don't know if you can see also, they've added a stip that if Undertaker loses, it'll be his last WrestleMania. How can that stip exist? Because if Shane wins, then surely Shane can just let The Undertaker off. The whole thing's a mess, and there's been no attempt for any of this to make any sense. To me, there's a couple of things here. So one, personally, I'd rather not have The Undertaker in this match. I don't think it suits him. I think you know, first of all, you could have done the final Brock Undertaker match. There was no need to rush it for No Mercy. That I think was a huge mistake. You could have debuted someone like Finn Balor against the Undertaker.
Yes.
And then in terms of Shane, I think the match that would have made a lot more sense for Shane to have would be against Triple H.
Yes.
Because that's the real match. You know, that is the guy who by shacking up and with his sister has stolen Shane's birthright. And I think Shane McMahon versus the fake McMahon would be a far better feud and far more realistic, and you know, etc., etc., etc. Now, in terms of the match, that's going to be really interesting because you know Shane isn't a wrestler, so you're relying on the Undertaker to carry Shane to a good match. When was the last time the Undertaker carried somebody to a good match? I mean,
yeah.
I don't remember. I mean, no one's quite clear who carried who in the Brock Lesnar Undertaker matches. My guess is it was probably Brock. You look at you look at Undertaker Bray. It was nothing special, even though obviously Bray had hurt his ankle.
Yeah.
But you know they have Hell in a Cell. Shane's going to fall off the top of it, no doubt. So I'm sure it'll be a great spectacle. I'm sure it'll be entertaining. I think the problem they just have is it just doesn't make any sense. And as a fan, I don't know which outcome I'm meant to root for and how they get out of it. I mean, it'll be such a flat finish to have the Undertaker just win. But are we really going to have Shane beat the Undertaker? I mean, that would be bizarre.
Shelley.
And actually, the other thing that is bizarre is having Shane run down the promotion. I mean, why you'd want the babyface to be attacking the promotion this way? It's all very WCW. It has to be said.
Yeah, it's just very, very strange. And let's not forget that the Undertaker is a wrestler that's very limited in what he can do in the ring. I mean, he's not the Undertaker from 10 years ago. This is a guy that's 50 plus years old, and like you say, he's been in not one but two, maybe three pretty poor matches recently that we've seen him in the last few years. As far as Shane goes, Shane's a great worker. He does some great moves. He's probably a better wrestler than people ever give him credit for, because some of the moves I've seen him pull off have been crazy. But the guy's got 3 kids. He's 47 years old, Will, and he's not going to take the risks that he did then. He's got responsibility in his life now, whatever you say about it. I also feel the same as you, that I can't get excited for it because I don't know who to cheer for and care for, even though, you know, as fans, I do care about them both. I don't want to see either of them get hurt, not real hurt. And I don't also think that I agree with you in that Shane McMahon versus Triple H would have been a great match because it would have been better in the ring. There'd have been better moves. It had better chemistry. The fans would have reacted to it more. And as far as a finish goes, I don't know how to call it. What do you think is going to be the ending of the match, Will? What do you believe?
Just all that thing. So a couple of things just about the matches. First of all, I think they will take the risks because I think Shane's a crazy person. And that's the thing, because I mean, I don't think he's ever been a good worker. I'm not saying he couldn't have been a good worker, because I think, you know, he's been trained. He's certainly a good athlete.
Yeah.
Certainly seems like when he was younger, he was a bit of a tough guy. But, you know, he's always been able to take great stunts. 47-year-old guy, 51-year-old guy, 51 guy with all sorts of injuries.
Yeah.
This is a promotion that wouldn't let Daniel Bryan wrestle. You know, and this is where, because you think the test that made Daniel Bryan agree to quit is a test that nobody else on the roster has done. Do you think there's any way Undertaker would pass that test, given everything that he's put his body through over his career?
No way.
And this is where the idea of them being just incredibly hypocritical in their treatment of Daniel Bryan comes in. In terms of the finish, the only finish I can envisage, and this may just be me as an Undertaker fan, not want to see him lose to Shane McMahon, is Undertaker wins, then kills Vince.
That could work.
But even then, that's a bit flat. You know?
I don't know, though. I think it'd still get a major pop, though. To see Undertaker tombstone Vince would be amazing.
Yes, but it's a very odd match.
It is a very odd match. So then we move on to the epic main event. That is Triple H, who once again is the WWE champion. I love Triple H, but not as the champion. He's the NXT owner. He shouldn't be the WWE champion. Sorry, I'm ranting now. Versus Roman Reigns, who to me is a good wrestler. I like Roman, very bland and boring on the microphone, but as a wrestler, I quite like him. What is your take on this match, Will?
Before we do that, we probably should just mention Ambrose Lesnar, which it will basically be Lesnar killing Ambrose.
Yes.
Will probably not get much heat because I don't think anyone buys Ambrose as a challenge for Lesnar, unfortunately. In terms of the main event, I was back in November. I was saying that maybe they should think about putting the title on Triple H because they just didn't have enough heels.
Yeah.
And one of the things I hadn't twigged, I quickly did when I started thinking about it, was Triple H will get cheered by this crowd
Exactly.
for two reasons. One, he is a star from the Attitude Era, and an awful lot of people who go to WrestleMania are people whose heart lies in that 1999 to 2001 peak. And we saw that with, say, Randy Orton, where Randy Orton couldn't get cheered against Triple H because he was a young, clean-cut, youthful babyface, and the hardcore male fan base went with the established veteran because they just didn't like the young guy against their guy. Second thing is he's going to be winning all around town, promoting NXT. We know he's going to do his big Paul Heyman tribute act the Friday beforehand.
Yeah.
So, you're going to have like at least 20,000 fans who may have gone to see NXT on the Friday, loving Triple H because he's given this great program. So it's going to be a fiasco because you're just going to have the entire crowd cheer Triple H over Roman Reigns. And look, I've heard some people say they think they're going to turn Roman heel. They've resisted it for so long, I find it difficult to believe that. All the stuff, say, Meltzer's reporting is about them going forward with Roman as a babyface against people like Bray Wyatt. But to me, this is the time to turn him heel, because if you don't turn him heel, you have two options. You either let Triple H retain and then have him drop it to a babyface who's over, such as Dean Ambrose, such as Brock Lesnar, such as AJ Styles, or you try and do this big babyface moment and the fans are just going to crap all over it, something fierce, because they're just not going to like it. In terms of Roman as a babyface, he's a perfectly good babyface. The problem is that they have a main event style, and their main event style includes the heel getting heat on the babyface for a prolonged period, and that's the thing he sucks at. He sucks at selling. He can't do it. That's why when he did the singles feud between him and Big Show, it always hurts him, because the way you get babyface heat against a Big Show is to be beaten up a lot.
Yes.
And Roman, it's always awkward when they ask Roman to sell for anybody. With Roman, it really should be short matches where he does big power moves and he goes for a quick finish. The thing I fear for this match is if Triple H tries to make the match too long. You go back to the feud with Batista, which, they had a great Hell in a Cell match, but the first two matches, including the match at WrestleMania, were god-awful because Triple H insisted on doing 20-minute matches where he couldn't carry the big muscle-bound stiff to a good match. So, I think it's worse than last year, because I think you have the issue where at least last year the fans really wanted Lesnar to win, whereas I think you'll have the fans cheering Triple H just to be dicks to WWE, but they just do not care about Roman, and the apathy the fans have to him on every single Raw, it is just getting so sad.
To me, there's an easy win to this, though, Will. In my opinion, they could do this match so much better by doing one thing. This is the one thing that, to me, I believe that they should do, and that's easy to do. I don't know if you'll probably completely disagree with this, but I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are anyway. I think in the match with Lesnar versus Ambrose, we all know Lesnar's going to win, right? He's going to tear Dean Ambrose apart, okay? So this is how you eliminate that. You have Paul Heyman screw Brock Lesnar out of the match, so Dean Ambrose wins. Paul Heyman disappears, right? He comes out and helps Roman Reigns beat Triple H and goes with Roman Reigns, because we all know about the camaraderie between Paul Heyman. He has an admiration for Roman Reigns, so it makes sense that Roman Reigns would be the new Heyman guy. What are your thoughts on that?
I do disagree. For two reasons. One, you go back to when they first broke Lesnar away from Heyman back in 2002. And it was remarkable how much he lost from his act by being away from Heyman. I mean, I think Lesnar Heyman is very much this era's Randy Savage versus Miss Elizabeth, in the sense of, the wrestler really does lose a lot by not having the second there. I think they are very much a team. And I think the second thing is, I just don't think it's believable. I mean, this is the thing with the Lesnar CM Punk feud, where I felt it was very believable that when the chips were down, Heyman would side with Lesnar over CM Punk. One, because, and I get the feeling that in real life, Heyman is closer to CM Punk. In terms of what's been portrayed public, I think there's this sense that Heyman is closer to Lesnar because they've spoke about it more in real life because of the UFC connection. But also, Paul's a coward. So in terms of the character. So the whole idea is that Paul has sided with Heyman, the dominant babyface / heel, whichever it is, and he would never go against this dominant monster because this dominant monster would kill him. True. And that actually comes to the third argument is Heyman's not cleared to do anything physical. So you can't really set up a massive feud between Heyman and Lesnar because Lesnar could never get his hands on Heyman. And so you would be building Lesnar up to fail because he would never be able to actually do what he'd need to do. Oh. So, I mean, and also I think one of the interesting things actually is, the big rumor is coming out of this is they're going to have Ambrose lose to Lesnar, have Roman beat Triple H, and then do a heel Ambrose, have Ambrose turn heel, and do heel Ambrose Roman Reigns. Right. And if they do that, they have lost their freaking mind because Ambrose will be cheered every arena across the country and the world, indeed, they'll be in the UK against Reigns, and it will destroy Reigns. It will destroy him so totally that they won't even be able to set him heel and have a heel run with him. It will just make him a complete joke of the champion.
And as far as putting Reigns over, though, Will, doesn't that make Reigns instantly over if Paul Heyman sides with him?
I mean, the thing is, I don't think Reigns needs Heyman to be a heel. I think they could just turn Reigns heel and have him align with, maybe with Shane McMahon, maybe with... you could just have him align with Shane McMahon and then turn Shane heel, or have Roman talk for himself. Because the thing with Roman is a better talker than Lesnar. No, Lesnar's better with short sentences. So I think you could quite easily turn Reigns heel. I mean, to be fair, you wouldn't necessarily have to do it during the match. You could just let the match proceed, have the heel reaction, and then the next day have Reigns do something to turn him heel. Then, but I don't like the idea of pairing him with Heyman. But I do feel that the natural thing, the smart thing to do, would be to turn him heel on that show, but I don't know if they're going to do it. I really think they might try and do the babyface push, and if they do, it's going to go badly wrong because the fans just don't like Reigns.
What do you, in your gut, what do you feel is going to be the ending to the match, Will? What do you think is going to happen?
I think it'll just be Reigns beating Triple H with his move.
Me too.
They'll have a big brawl, and it'll go all over the place. They'll use smoke and mirrors, and then Triple H will go for the pedigree, probably get it, then Reigns kicks out to get back up. Triple H goes for another pedigree. Reigns reverses, Superman punch, spear, pin. Reigns is your champion. But again, I mean, I think it'll be a good match. I mean, Reigns and Triple H don't usually fail in big match situations. I think they'll be benefited if they don't go on last. I think if they go second, it means the crowd won't be tired out from the Shane Undertaker match. But yeah, it's that thing of I just don't see this. This is a match that the crowd is going to seriously hurt because I just don't see how they get the crowd reaction they want.
And another thing that I can, in the back of my mind, I feel like WrestleMania is always one to have like the guest appearances. And obviously being in Texas, everybody wants to see Austin. So a way that, for me, that you could have Austin appear is to maybe help Ambrose beat Lesnar. Is that something that could viably happen? Could he stun Brock Lesnar?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could do that. I mean, they've just got so much money invested in Lesnar. I mean, they've got so much money invested in Lesnar. Do you really want to? It's going to sound all. I could see the argument for Ambrose being the one to beat Lesnar, but I don't think they see the argument. So if I'm there and I'm thinking like they do you really want to waste being the first person to beat Lesnar properly, except Triple H, on Ambrose? And I think the answer is no. They want Reigns to do it.
Yes.
So, but I mean, the idea of Austin being the one to help Ambrose win would make sense. And they are having this thing of all the veterans trying to help Dean. I mean, they had Terry Funk on Raw on Monday giving Dean Ambrose advice, bizarrely. So I could see it. I mean, it is going to be interesting because the rumor is that they're going to have Foley's going to be on the show, Shawn Michaels is going to be on the show, The Rock is going to be on the show, maybe with something to do with the New Day match. But yeah, nothing feels that big on that score. I mean, it's not possible for the fact that Seth Rollins' knee is destroyed at the moment, but the one thing they could do in the main event, if he was healthy, would be to reform the Shield. If they did that, I think that would get the most gigantic reaction you could imagine. But as they can't do that, unfortunately. So, I mean, if I was trying to pick the way I think I would book it, I think maybe actually Triple H to win, because Dean Ambrose tries to interfere to help Roman and costs Roman the title.
Yes. And
then Roman turns heel on Ambrose by kicking the ever-living hell out of Ambrose. And then you do Reigns and a newly babyface Triple H on Raw on a network special. You get the title on the newly heel Reigns, and then you're off to the races with heel Reigns. You can defend against Ambrose, Lesnar, AJ, all sorts of people.
So before we wrap this up, and we need to, but let me just ask you this. There's one thing I didn't ask you, is that when we started the conversation, I never asked you what wrestlers are your kind of all-time favorites, and what are the ones that drew you into the product, Will?
Okay, so I suppose my all-time favorite wrestler would be Ric Flair. Even you just go back and watch some of those matches he was having in the 80s.
Yes.
They just are incredible. And one of the things people forget with Flair is he wasn't just a comic character; he was serious.
Yes.
A lot of what I think is important about wrestling was shown in Flair. The fact that his character was reflected in how he wrestled. So when he was meant to be this cowardly guy who, because he was a bit more glamorous than the average Southern babyface, was kind of slightly effeminate.
Yes.
That was portrayed in his wrestling style. When he was a babyface and you liked him because he was so flashy, that was shown in his wrestling style. Loved people like Mick Foley, more hard-rolling styles. Always a big fan of Triple H. One of the guys who really got me into the idea of really liking in-ring pro wrestling would be Chris Benoit, which actually he almost stopped me being a pro wrestling fan, because I don't think I watched it for about a year after after all what happened with him in terms of the murder-suicide.
Yeah.
So, and then actually also the Undertaker and Brock, The Undertaker was just always a very interesting character. And Brock has always been a crazy man who was always very captivating in terms of the matches he did. And obviously, as somebody who is a UFC fan, he was always really interested in seeing him go in and do so well in UFC, and then be able to bring it back into pro wrestling. And how many great matches he's had since he came back is quite incredible. So yeah, so there are few. In terms of at the moment, I have got more into for New Japan World, and Shinsuke Nakamura is just a tremendous talent. He's so entertained. I mean, I've always been somebody who kind of undersold Japanese pro wrestling because it felt colourless to me, because obviously you can't understand the promos, you don't know the storylines. But he is somebody whose charisma transcends language.
What kind of wrestler is he for the listeners? Is there a wrestler that you can kind of equate him to?
God, that's I would say, and this is going to sound, and people who know more about New Japan are probably going to say I'm wrong. Part of me thinks he's almost like a cross between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, in the sense of he's a very technically sound wrestler.
Yes,
he's actually done MMA, so he does a lot of power moves. He does a lot of technical wrestling. So very flashy, and he has a lot of kicks in his arsenal. There's a lot of taunts. He's got a very emotive face. So I suppose I'd say he's himself. But yeah, if I was trying to explain to somebody, I'd say he's kind of like a cross between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, which is kind of a strange thing to say. But he's a tremendous talent, and of all the matches that WWE is putting on WrestleMania weekend, him versus Sami Zayn is the one I'm most looking forward to. I think that's going to be something really special.
I don't think you're the only one. I've heard a lot of buzz about that match. So,
people who have listened to this will say these guys are so negative; they just hate anything WWE put out. If we'd gone over the takeover, it'd have been like Shinsuke, Sami Zayn, great match. Bayley, Asuka, great match. Finn Balor, Samoa Joe, great match. Austin Aries, Baron Corbin, great match. Good. Even though Baron Corbin's not the best wrestler, it's a good feud that makes sense.
Yeah.
We'd have been so much more positive than we are about WrestleMania. It's not that the problem isn't that we're negative. The problem is that the main product just sucks right now.
I think the problem is that exactly that. Just like you said, we're not negative. It's the fact that the WWE is negative, and they're giving us so much more to cheer and care about with NXT. I just feel like with the simplified format, the fans can get behind it, love it, and I love it. I think NXT is an amazing product. I love it. I watch every week. I watch the NXT over WWE a lot of the time because I know that I'm going to get what I pay for in a sense, Yeah,
absolutely.
So what do you think the WWE could do before WrestleMania? Is it too late now to up the ante? Is there anything that is simple that they could do to even more amplify just how? Because to me, it feels like the WWE missed the point of WrestleMania now. WrestleMania to me doesn't feel like WrestleMania. You think how huge WrestleMania was. That'd be the only thing that the WWE would talk about. But now I feel like it's become a colossus of its own force. Like they don't need to talk about it because it is WrestleMania.
Yeah, I think this is the first year I think they've done that. I think previous years have been pretty good at still treating it as important. I may not have always good to the matches they've picked. I think this year, title on the line for Royal Rumble really hurts because they haven't had a clear program to be building towards since the Rumble. And I think having that Roadblock show as a special really hurt because it just meant for a few weeks they just started promoting other things.
It's wasted time.
I think it really hurt Triple H Reigns, and it really, really hurt Ambrose Lesnar because they just basically stopped building up Ambrose Lesnar for 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
In terms of what they could do to put a fire in it, I think it's too late now. I think the die is cast. I mean, you can't really debut a surprise and make a new match 1 week out. So it won't mean anything. What could they do? No, I mean, I've got to be honest. My mind's a blank. I think the thing they could have done is if that Roadblock they'd had Ambrose win the title, potentially with Shane's help, and then you move Triple H into that match with Shane. You can then do the maybe a repeat of the 3-way or just a 4-way for the world title or something. But there's only so much the WWE could ever do to make this an engaging show when they'd gone down the route of Roman Reigns challenging as the babyface of the title because fans just didn't want to.
Will, that's been an absolutely brilliant chat. I've really enjoyed it, man. You're a great guy, and I very much appreciate you taking the time out to speak to me.
No, it's been great. Thank you for having me. Just like to say to everybody, if you want to find out more about pro wrestling and UFC, make sure to check out Fighting Spirit magazine. It's in all good news agents, and you can also buy it online from fightingspiritmagazine.co.uk.
And that's one thing I want to mention to you, Will. That's a bit sad now because isn't Fighting Spirit magazine like one of the last wrestling magazines that actually exists in physical format? Because I feel like digital media is taking over in a big way.
Yeah, obviously Power Slam, which was the other big UK press thing, closed. I mean, I think there's a couple of things with that. I mean, one, obviously, you just have the fact that it's a bad market for magazines, full stop. So, many magazines from all different genres are closing down. But the other thing as well is there's such a wealth of information about pro wrestling and UFC online that you really have to work quite hard to make a magazine make sense for people. Why should people? People get through say podcasts. They can actually listen to their favorite pro wrestlers talk about stories. They can read people's opinions about what's going on, and so you do have to go the extra miles trying to develop a product that's worth people paying for. And I think Brian does that as our editor. I mean, I think in terms of he pushes us as the feature writers to make sure that our stuff is unique. So I'll give you an example. One column I did a feature about Brazilian MMA. Yeah. And I got it all done, and I thought it was a pretty good article. And then just before it was due to go to print, Dave Meltzer, the Wrestling Observer, did a big feature on the history of Brazilian MMA, which basically it was basically the same article, but obviously because Dave has more contacts, it had far more links and stuff like that. Yeah. And Ryan was like, well, there's no point us doing this now because quite a few of our readers already also read the Observer. If we give them this, we're just giving them something else they've read before, and so the article got nixed. And that's the type of thing Brian's constantly pushing for us, make sure it's something that people haven't read elsewhere, that they couldn't just get online. And then obviously we have the great advantage of having a guest columnist. So, there's nowhere else you're going to get the type of columns that, say, someone like Jim Cornette puts out. So, I think it's a really good magazine, and I think it's good. It has its niche when, so many pro wrestling magazines just don't exist anymore.
That has been Will Coolin. I've been Carl Eggert, and you have been listening to Monday Night Carlo.
You have been listening to Monday Night Carlo. The views and opinions expressed by the Carlo are all his own and do not represent any other entity.